How's it going, guys? So today in the Phantom Cave YouTube channel, we're going to be talking about the latest book I've read. And the latest book I have read is The Crystal Skull. It is a Sweden classic, and it is a very, I think, a very good story, I think. It has a lot of historical sort of moments in this comic, and as we all know, it came from the year 2015, and the next actual issue that would have came up after this was the 2015 annual special. So it came with the replica series of issue number 23. Back in those days, you would had the replicas coming out every in each year, and yeah, it's a good thing to have the replicas of old comics coming out, but of course, we didn't see a replica come out in 2020 because of the Phantom War being published previously in the 2019 annual. Now, the Crystal Skull, it has some evil properties to do with it, and yes, the publisher for this one is Dudley Hogarth, and he's pretty cool. I don't think I've actually met him, but I think he must be all pretty cool. But in the story, there's this big earthquake happen in the town of old Mexican town. And basically the villagers, they leave the village and they go to the big town on the plains. Now, the reason because of that is obviously they're scared of the Crystal Skull and its evil properties. Now, we actually find out that the Crystal Skull is not a real thing. It was like this story came out way before the Indiana Jones movie, The Crystal Skull, came out. So it could have inspired the Indiana Jones movies, probably, but again, we see one of the descendants of the current Phantom in action, and he actually does a very bad thing. One of the descendants, I think it's either the 17th Phantom or it's the 16th Phantom. It's either one of them, and he actually does a very bad thing. He lets the Crystal Skull out of water, out of liquid, and basically nearly destroys half the town. But then they get some fire and it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Now, we move forward a few centuries and we now have the current Phantom. And he has heard a very bad earthquake in the same Mexican town as the previous Phantom had. And basically the first part of the story, he's going to find out what basically is the story behind the Crystal Skull. And obviously there's nothing in the newspapers, there's nothing in the historical newspapers. He actually finds it out from his chronicles, of course. But the Phantom actually comes and investigates on the trip to Mexico and finds out that there's a smuggling operation going on, and what he actually thinks maybe the real Crystal Skull isn't, and it's just another ploy to try and get natural resources out of the ground and make billions in profit for from the little people. And so, as we all know, if you haven't heard that song called The Little Big Town or something like that, by Alan Jackson or something, that sort of relates to the story, and it's sort of a bigger sort of person that knows a lot more about the natural resources is actually trying to take away the resources from the native villagers. And so the Phantom stops that. He actually nearly dies. He's in a life and death situation, and he finds out who it is. This actually guy thinks he's a mole. He doesn't like sun, and eventually he will get caught, and the Phantom has to run out to save his life. And so the Phantom actually has to he actually finds the crystal skull, the real crystal skull, and because the last couple of centuries it had been underwater and that water's gone, so it had been in rock and now it's fallen away from the rock, and the Phantom eventually gets home, he saves the day, and we see the crystal skull hopefully stay in the skull cave. Now, will that be the end of that story? We don't actually know. I don't think there is another sequel to the story, but hopefully when Dudley Hogarth thinks that it should require another sort of publication in probably the next 5 years, we'll actually probably see a sequel with it. I reckon, I'm just guessing, I reckon because we've seen a lot of stories in the past. We've seen the Ibis Mystery nearly get a sequel, which that hasn't came out. The 5th part of that hasn't came out, but I've read that. I reviewed it on the channel, and you can go watch it up there. So, will we be seeing another sequel in the future? I don't actually know, but hopefully there's another sort of story to go with it, hopefully. And in the ads today, in the retro ads in 2015, we had the collectiblechaos.com.au ad, and it was a Phantom Ghost Who Walks limited edition 12-inch statue. Only 360 were within Australia. We have less than 50 available, so don't miss out. I'm not too sure if this sort of promotion is still going on, but at least we actually know there was a statue going up for so many dollars in 2015. So the back cover, the back cover and the front cover, I think maybe it's sort of taken from the story and then reinterpreted in like color and sort of put it on the front and back cover. They actually did that, I'm pretty sure, in the 80s. They did it before the 80s and a little bit after the 90s, I'm pretty sure. So if you would like to subscribe to the Phantom Cave YouTube channel, go down below, subscribe down below, and as always, keep Phantom Cave.